What's going on, everybody? Welcome to my Week 5 NFL Power Rankings. I think Week 4 was pretty in line with a lot of things I've been saying. A lot of teams like Tampa Bay, Miami, that I have taken a wait and see, don't overreact approach. On the flip side with New England, yeah, there were some surprises, but I think a lot of people that have said less than nice things in my previous Power Rankings might wish they could have a thing or two back on some of those teams we just mentioned. So now we're sitting here heading into Week 5, a month of football behind us. A lot of these teams have had some ups and downs, but they're starting to find their identity, starting to figure out what they want to be heading into the heart of the season. So let's talk about where these teams stand, how they stack up heading into Week 5, starting at the bottom with the Buffalo Bills. They are back at the bottom. Now, a big reason for this is Josh Rosen came in and played pretty well for the Cardinals, who I had last, but the Bills, who were at the bottom before a huge upset at Minnesota last week, really just did not show up this week. I don't think Green Bay played well at all. Buffalo could not move the ball at all. I do think the defense has actually come around quite a bit, but Josh Allen, a big step back this week. Inefficient, bad mistakes, not what you want to see. Doesn't help that he has no help around him. So this Buffalo team really flat right now. And then, like I said, the Cardinals moving up a spot here. Josh Rosen sparking some things for that offense. A tough loss against Seattle this week. I think this is a team that can play tough, will play in a lot of close games. They might even spoil some teams, but they lack a lot of firepower on offense. I think they have some holes on that defense. And then at number 30, we've actually got the 49ers. They're going to move up a spot. They played the Chargers pretty well in this game. CJ Beathard could have been worse. Still, obviously, not a great team without Jimmy right now. Probably going to be looking at a top 3 or 4 pick when all is said and done. But I was impressed. They hung around there against a team that they were serious underdogs against. And then number 29, the New York Jets coming down. Just had nothing in Jacksonville against that good defense on the road. And then their own defense is, again, just kind of fine, but not a team that can really keep this team in games against good teams with how much that offense is struggling right now. So just not a good football team right now. They're not ready. And then number 28, the Oakland Raiders moving up a couple spots with a big win at home, getting their first win of the season. Now, offensively, John Gruden has this team clicking right now. They look pretty good. Carr had some bad mistakes in this one, but overall, just they're looking good. Their offensive line is playing well. Carr's been all right. Defensively, this defense is terrible. It's kind of like we predicted. One of, I think, the 2 worst defenses in the league. Our next team, I think, might have them beat right now, but personnel-wise, the Raiders just have nothing going for them. Carl Joseph was out in this one. Bruce Irvin, who a lot of people would guess is their second best player on their defense, only played like 30% of snaps. John Gruden must not like him or something. Just no pass rush, poor coverage. It's not going to be a very pretty season for the Raiders, but good for them to get a tight win in overtime in this one. And then number 27, the Pirates from the other Bay, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, getting slaughtered in Chicago this week. And like I said, this defense was awful. Give some credit to Mitch. He made some really nice plays, but overall, just no energy at all from this defense. No pass rush at all. Jason Pierre-Paul got eaten up. Wouldn't have even guessed Vinny Curry was playing in this game. Just nothing up front. And then in the secondary, defenders tripping over themselves, pass interference calls. Just a really rough day at the office for Tampa. They've lost 2 straight. Fitzmagic is done. We're back to the Jameis Winston days. This is one of those teams that a lot of people had written off my rankings because of me keeping the Bucs down low, and I'm very glad that I did not buy into the hype because this defense is terrible. The offense has impressed me. I think the offense will be better moving forward, but it's not close to what we saw in the first couple weeks. And then 26, a bad loss for the Giants this week. They've really hovered around this 24 to 28 range all season. I don't think that's going to change. This is one of 4 or 5 teams that I've got a very good grasp on what this team is. And they had a big win in Houston last week. I did not want to overreact to that. And sure enough, they come back bad on offense again against, we don't even know what the Saints defense is right now. It's somewhere between the team that gave up 45 points to the Bucs week 1 and what was a top 10 defense last year. And then just defensively for the Giants, they're just whatever. So they're not a good football team right now. I don't see that changing. Then we got the Browns at 25. They're going to come down just one spot. The defense obviously taking a step back in this one. I still think it's a good defense. This type of thing happens in the NFL. The Jags gave up 45 points late last year. It's a big reason I prefer offensive-minded teams to defensive-minded teams because the good coaches, the good quarterbacks, they're going to be able to score points against pretty much any defense in the league, no matter how good they are, especially in this offensive-minded era. And then on that side of the ball for Cleveland, some mental mistakes, some flashes from Baker, some bad plays as well. Obviously, a pretty good overall day for Cleveland. They were able to run the ball at will. They blocked really well up front. Nick Chubb, they got to get him more involved. Just 3 carries, actually just 3 snaps in this game. They give him the ball on every carry. He goes for over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns with 2 huge runs. So Cleveland, again, competitive, but nothing crazy. And then Houston's going to move up 5 spots. They're one of the big risers this week. Actually, the biggest riser on the week. A desperation win this week against a division opponent, going to overtime. Now, they came really close to blowing this game. They were really in control until the late 4th quarter, but they persevere. They come through in the end. Good to get that first win on the season. This is a team that had a lot of hype going into the year, so we'll see if they can repeat next week or if they're just not very good. 23, we got the Miami Dolphins. I had them down at, 20 last week. I think CBS had them ranked 5th. Well, CBS has some explaining to do. Ryan Tannehill, in arguably the biggest game of his career, ends up getting benched because he was so bad. Some people surprised, me not so much. Been very critical of this team. They had a chance to prove that they can go on the road and beat a legitimate NFL team, and they fall flat on their face. So we'll see if they can bounce back, continue to beat teams that they should beat, and at least be in the mix for the playoffs, or if they'll just drift away into the abyss. We'll see. 22, we got the Seahawks dropping down 8. Now, I've been pretty stubborn on the Seahawks team, but there's 2 players, 3 if you count Russell, that this team couldn't lose, and Earl Thomas was one of them. The range that he brings, paired with Bobby Wagner, really thought made that defense completely under the radar. Now that defense is going to take a big step back, and I don't think this offense is going to be able to close that gap. I really do believe in Seattle's system that there's maybe 10 to 15 players in this league that getting injured non-quarterback that can have this big of an impact, and they won this game, but Earl Thomas is one of them for what he does for this team. So an ugly loss there, or an ugly win for Seattle. Then we got Detroit. They're going to stay put. Now, I was actually really impressed by Detroit, and I picked them to be one of my locks this week, and they come up just short. They do cover the spread, but I thought they would win that game outright. Dallas, really nice game-winning drive by Dak Prescott in this one. But I'm really impressed with Detroit's offense. Probably the best receiving core in the NFL right now, if I'm being honest. You got 3 guys. A lot of teams have 2. You can make an argument for the Rams, I guess, but Kenny Golladay is legit, man. It's no longer like a bit or a gimmick to say that Kenny Golladay is a stud. Seriously, he is amazing. He could be, by the end of this year, a top 10 receiver. He's got the physical profile of a true number 1. And it's not like Marvin Jones and Golden Tate are any joke. But the defense is pretty bad, to be honest. Just no playmakers outside of Darius Slay, who did have a good game in this one. Detroit kind of is what they've been for the last couple of years, a really competitive team with a good quarterback that is definitely a second-half player, just like we saw in this game. And then Dallas is going to be 20th, who beat Detroit this week. Dallas did a really good job. A lot of people have been critical of their game plan, and they totally changed up their attack on offense. They said, we're going to do everything we can to get the ball into Ezekiel Elliott's hands. Zeke had an incredible game. I tweeted this out. I'm not sure I've seen a running back take over a game like I saw Zeke take over this game. Just creating yards from nothing so consistently. There's great running backs like Todd Gurley, Alvin Kamara, who maybe 2 or 3 plays a game, they have like wow plays where you'd think they'd get tackled or stuffed and they turn it into a big offensive play. Well, Zeke was doing this almost every other time he touched the football. It was really impressive. He even had a deep completion to kind of put this game away, lined up as a slot receiver. I don't think we've really seen that from Zeke in his career. So really impressed by Zeke and his offense as a whole. Dak had a great game. The defense did enough. So a good week for Dallas, definitely rising on them. And then 19, we got the Colts. Andrew Luck had a great game this week, but the defense did not look very good. T.Y. Hilton goes down, and while they still were able to move the ball, I think they definitely missed him. It was a really impressive comeback in this one. Andrew Luck, for kind of the first time this year, kind of reminding us that as long as you have him, you are in every game. And just to see that being true, and I know they ended up losing. This could have easily been a tie if they decided not to go for it and show that faith in Andrew Luck. But just to see that elite ceiling that Andrew Luck still has that is, I think, enough to justify this Colts team as a top 20 team in this league, especially because they've shown some pretty good defense outside of this week. And then at 18, we got the Bears Kind of the story of the week was Mitch Trubisky and his 6 passing touchdowns. And I don't want to take anything away from Mitch, even though this is going to in turn do that. He made 3, 4, maybe 5 throws in this game. You could see why he was the second overall pick, where that upside comes from. Now, he's been extremely concerning all year, and he even had moments in this game that were reminiscent of their first few weeks, just especially early in that game. But as it went on, he was in a rhythm. He was on fire. He couldn't miss. He was taking shots downfield, which he's been hesitant to do, so it's all good to see that. Definitely the stock is rising on Mitch Trubisky, don't get me wrong, but that Tampa Bay defensive performance was embarrassing. So I'll give Mitch his credit, and if this team can get even half of that from Mitch throughout the year, they're a contender in the NFC North, contender in the NFC, because this defense is so dominant. But let's at least see one more week of competent offense from this Bears team before we freak out. They got a bye week this upcoming week, so we're going to have to wait. 17, we got the Jags. They took care of business at home. Really not a whole lot to say there. We know that defense is good. That's a game that they should have won at home, and they did. Still don't buy the offense, though. And then at 16, the Panthers, who were on bye, they're actually just going to fall one. I was impressed by some of these other teams. Cincinnati being one of them. They go into Atlanta and had arguably the biggest win of Andy Dalton's career, at least in terms of Andy Dalton, game on the line. We need you to make a play. He goes down, game-winning touchdown drive. Really impressive performance. They're going to get Joe Mixon back. This is just an interesting team because a lot of teams struggle on one side of the ball, but are elite on another. And the Bengals are just kind of slightly above average, I think, on both sides of the ball. And that's why they hover right around this middling ranking. But it was impressive to see Andy Dalton do something that I really can't remember him doing, and that's winning a big-time game on the road against another really good team. And then 14, we've got the Titans moving up 4 spots. And, some Titans fans are going to call me a Titans hater because they've got some impressive wins this year. I think I've been very honest about this Titans team this year. I liked this defense heading into the year. I was not sure what was going to happen with this offense. I recognize the upside. We saw some of that in this game, and that's why they're going to rise here. And I actually picked the Titans to win this game, so I'm not even surprised they beat the Eagles because I thought it was going to happen. I like the momentum that this Titans team has. I just don't know if I trust them from week to week quite yet, but they're definitely making things interesting here. And then at 13, the Redskins, who were on bye, they're going to get a -1. It has nothing to do with them. I still like the Redskins this year. I still think they're going to be in the race for a wild card this year. With the way their division's playing out, they could be in the picture for that division. And then at 12, the Denver Broncos. Now, I'm going to be completely honest. These rankings were set in stone with about 10 minutes left in this Monday Night Football game. I don't think it changes too much, but I think you could probably make an argument based on what we saw for any really of the last 5 teams to go above Denver. We're probably talking about a half-point difference between any of these teams that I've just talked about. And I thought Denver would have showed nice defense and closed that game out, but they did play really nice for the first 3 quarters, so you at least credit them that. They at least cover against a team that they were supposed to lose to. So a decent night for Denver. Would have liked to see them close, but I still think it's a good football team. Don't trust that offense, but it's still a pretty good defense. And then 11, we got the Steelers. They're actually going to stay put despite losing to the Ravens. Now, I've got a pretty solid grasp, I think, on this Steelers team. I picked the Ravens to win that game. They did. Steelers have a pretty bad defense. That's selling it short. I think at some point this offense, though, it is going to get back to that top 5 level that it's not playing at right now. But Le'Veon Bell now it looks like should be back about week 7. That's going to be a huge spark. It's not like this team is suffering major injuries. I think they'll figure some things out. I don't think they're a Super Bowl team. I never really did. But losing to Baltimore, it's not the worst loss in the world. And then I've got Atlanta here at 10. Some people are going to wonder how I can rank them over the Bengals. They just lost. Well, it was a tight game. Could have gone either way. Look, the thing is with Atlanta is when you have an offense that can literally score on demand, you can beat anybody. And that's what this Falcons team is. Now, their defense is an absolute mess. They're actually right there with Tampa and Oakland right now for the worst defenses. But even though I'm not the biggest Matt Ryan guy, I mean, this offense is clicking full force right now. So I still think they're a tough out. And then we got Baltimore. They're going to go up a spot here. I like what Baltimore's doing right now. Their offense definitely establishing themselves. They can hit some big plays. John Brown playing well. They can run the ball. Their offensive line is pretty good. Joe Flacco, no, he's not elite, but he can operate the offense. They're healthy right now, which is something they have not had in a long, long time. And the Chargers are going to fall down one. They barely beat the 49ers. This might be too high, but they also had some more stupid Chargers-esque mistakes. Such a tough team to get a beat on. Now, Joey Bosa should be back this month, maybe early next month. I don't know. That's going to be a huge improvement to that defense. The offense is still very good. They did enough to get this win. At least they didn't go home with a loss. And to be honest, escaping the first month of the season 2-2 is better than the Chargers have done in the past. This is a team that usually plays much better in the second half of the year, at least over the last couple seasons in this era. I think they got a pretty easy schedule coming up too. I think there's good things on the horizon for the Chargers. Then we got the Vikings. They're going to come in at 7. Figured their defense was going to respond a little better. A big reason for this drop, though, is that Everson Griffin is kind of out indefinitely. We have no idea when he's going to come back. You could just tell. I mean, Jared Goff, it's a great offense. Don't get me wrong. The Vikings had no pass rush that night, and I've been saying this entire preseason that their cornerbacks are overrated. They are not playing well at all. It's been the weakness of this entire team, and their defense has really been beat up and picked apart for the last 2 weeks now, and that is what was supposed to make this team special. It is this offense that is keeping this team in games this year outside of week 1. So they still have pretty scary upside, but it's starting to become questionable if they're going to reach that. I still think it's a really tough team. They're going to play a really good game against the Eagles this week. And these are two teams right now that I think, as we sit here in week 5, they're not nearly what they should be in week 13. But right now, there's just a lot of questions around this team. And then at number 6, we got the New England Patriots, rewarding anyone who did not freak out here, kind of stayed the course. This is what the Patriots do. They dominate the Dolphins at home. Now, I still think that defense has some question marks, but, this is just what they do. They figure out who they are as the year goes on. The game plan gets better, and they just outsmart you. They've never had a great roster. This is one of the worst ones they've had, but that's really not what the Patriots are all about. They win with their head, not necessarily by physical force. And then number 5, the Packers are going to drop despite the shutout. That shutout, you probably go 80% is on the Buffalo Bills, just stinking offensively. The pass rush was impressive, but how much of that is just bad blocking for the Bills? I do think the Packers showed in this game that kind of what I've said, that their defense is not atrocious. It's top 20 defense or so, whatever. They've got some good players. The young D-backs played well in this one. What you're actually worried about right now here is the offense. And I would think at some point Aaron Rodgers is going to get closer and closer to full health, and they're only going to get better offensively as that happens. But I'm worried about the receivers here. Aaron Rodgers himself actually not a very good quarterback in this game in general. This was one of the worst games I've ever seen from Aaron Rodgers. So they have a lot to figure out offensively. I think they'll get there. In the number 4, the Philadelphia Eagles, they're going to drop a couple spots. Not too crazy movement here. I did actually pick them to lose in Tennessee this week, but to actually kind of see that play out, I think warrants a little drop. And also to see the Saints really excel this week in New York. The defense is figuring some things out a little bit. They're heating up. That offense is just dynamic. This was my Super Bowl pick in the NFC, and I'm glad I didn't just dive off of the boat on that one after week 1. It's starting to look like a damn good football team right now. Number 2, the Kansas City Chiefs. Wow, Patrick Mahomes willing his way back into that game. 4th quarter comeback. I mean, what else can you say about the guy other than, please, everyone, do not allow the networks, Bleacher Report, ESPN, push this garbage nickname Showtime Mahomes. It is lazy. He's played 5 starts. I don't have any recommendations right now, but he's only played 5 games. We can do a lot better, America, than Showtime Mahomes. Come on. If this guy's putting on a gold jacket in 25 years, I do not want to hear him be introduced as Showtime Mahomes. That's terrible. And then number 1, the Rams. Just a machine offensively. Jared Goff impressing a lot with his arm strength and his accuracy downfield, paired with these receivers. Obviously, the play calling, the offensive line has been incredible. It's not even fair. I mean, they picked up a guy, Justin Blythe, off of the Colts practice squad. It's not like their offensive line is anything to shout about. But they picked this guy up. He's starting at right guard, which was their biggest weakness on their entire team probably. And he's one of the highest rated offensive linemen in the NFL this year. It's ridiculous. They can't do anything wrong right now. Now the defense, you did have Peters beat up, no Talib in this one. I did think the defense was a touch overrated heading into this year, but the offense, I mean, if they're this good offensively, they could have the Raiders defense and they'd still maybe be ranked number 1. They're just an absolute machine right now. They've got Aaron Donald, who can close games in the fourth quarter. Very much deserve this number 1 ranking. So that's going to do it for this week, guys. Hit that like button if you enjoyed. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts. Cheers, and we'll see you next time.